There are people who work harder than you will ever work who die poor. There are people with extraordinary talent who never achieve financial security. There are people with every external advantage, education, connections, opportunities, who struggle their entire lives. And then there are people who seem to attract wealth effortlessly, who build fortune from nothing, who turn ideas into empires while others with better ideas remain stuck. This disparity is not random. It's not luck. It's not even entirely about effort or intelligence. Wealth follows laws, invisible laws. Laws that operate whether you understand them or not, whether you believe in them or not, whether you acknowledge them or not. Most people spend their life violating these laws without knowing they exist. They work hard, but in ways that repel wealth rather than attract it. They think positively, but without the inner alignment that makes positive thinking effective. They take action, but action that's rooted in fear or desperation rather than certainty. And they wonder why results don't match effort, why others succeed where they fail, why the universe seems unfair. But the universe is not unfair. It's lawful, perfectly, consistently, predictably lawful. And those laws govern wealth just as surely as gravity governs falling objects. These are not new laws. They've operated since the beginning of human civilization. They operated before anyone wrote them down, before anyone taught them. They operate in you right now, whether you're aware of them or not. And they will continue operating after you're gone. Your only choice is whether to work with these laws or against them, whether to align yourself with their operation or remain ignorant and struggle. Because ignorance of law does not exempt you from its effects. You can deny gravity exists, but you'll still fall. You can ignore the laws of wealth, but you'll still experience their consequences. Poverty or wealth, struggle or ease, limitation or abundance, these outcomes are not accidents. They're results. Results of how well you align with laws that govern such things. Today, you're going to learn what those laws are, not as theory, not as philosophy, but as practical, observable principles you can test in your own life. Principles that, when understood and applied, transform your relationship with wealth entirely, not through magical thinking, not through wishing or hoping or positive affirmations divorced from action, but through genuine alignment of your inner state, your thinking, your beliefs, your actions, with laws that already govern outcomes. When you align with these laws, wealth stops being something you chase and becomes something you attract, something that flows to you naturally as the inevitable result of how you're operating internally. But first, you must understand something fundamental. These are spiritual laws, not religious laws, not moral judgments about what you should or shouldn't do. Spiritual in the sense that they operate in the realm of mind, consciousness, and invisible forces before they manifest in the material world. Just as physical laws govern the material realm, spiritual laws govern the mental and causal realm, the realm where everything originates before taking form. And wealth, all wealth, begins in this invisible realm before appearing in the visible realm. Understanding this is essential, because if you only focus on the material world, on external actions and circumstances, you'll never understand why some actions produce wealth and others don't, why some people attract opportunity and others repel it, why identical external efforts produce vastly different results for different people. The answer is always in the invisible, in the internal, in the spiritual dimension of law that most people never learn about because it can't be seen, only experienced through its effects. But these effects are everywhere, in every success story, in every fortune built, in every person who has moved from poverty to prosperity. They understood these laws consciously or unconsciously, and they aligned themselves accordingly. And when they did, wealth came. Not because the universe suddenly favored them, but because they stopped violating laws that prevent wealth and started embodying laws that create it. Think about how gravity works. It doesn't care if you believe in it. It doesn't require your faith or understanding. It simply operates, consistently, predictably. You can't negotiate with gravity. You can't convince it to work differently for you. Your only options are to work with it or suffer the consequences of ignoring it. But when you understand gravity, you can use it. You can build structures that utilize it. You can create systems that harness it. The law doesn't change. Your understanding and application of it changes. And that changes everything. Wealth follows the same pattern. There are laws that govern its creation, its accumulation, its flow. These laws operate whether you know them or not. But when you don't know them, you violate them constantly. And violation produces struggle, limitation, a sense that wealth is for others but not for you. But when you learn these laws, when you align yourself with their operation, everything shifts, not overnight, but inevitably, because you're no longer working against the natural principles that govern wealth. You're working with them. And when you work with natural law rather than against it, results become not just possible, but inevitable. So what are these laws? Let me show you. Not as abstract concepts, but as practical realities you can observe, understand, and apply. Starting with the most fundamental law of all. Everything that exists begins as a definite idea held with unwavering intention. This is not wishful thinking. This is the foundation of creation itself. Before any object existed, someone held a clear, definite mental image of it. Before any fortune was built, someone held a definite intention to build it. Not a vague hope, not a general desire, but a clear, specific, unwavering idea that they held with such consistency and faith that it eventually materialized. This is the first law. The law of definiteness and intention, and it's the most violated law in relation to wealth. Most people want money. But wanting is not definite intention. Wanting is vague, scattered. It lacks the focused power that creation requires. They want more money. They want to be comfortable. They want financial security. But these are general desires, not specific intentions. And the universe cannot respond to vague wanting any more than a craftsman can build from vague plans. You must be specific, exact, clear about what you intend to create. Not because the universe needs specificity to understand you, but because definiteness focuses your own mental power. It organizes your thoughts. It directs your attention. It aligns your actions. Vague desires produce vague efforts. Definite intentions produce definite outcomes. Think of a builder who says, I want to build a house. That's not enough. He must know exactly what kind of house, how many rooms, what materials, what design. The more specific his plan, the more certainly he can execute it. The same applies to wealth. You must know specifically what you intend to create. Not just more money, but how much. By when, through what means, with what purpose. This definiteness is not limiting. It's focusing. It takes scattered mental energy and concentrates it like light through a lens. And concentrated mental energy, held with unwavering intention, is the force that materializes ideas into reality. But here's what most people don't understand. Definiteness must be maintained, not declared once and forgotten, but held consistently in mind, reinforced daily, returned to when distractions arise, because your mind is constantly receiving input from the external world, input that suggests your intention is impossible, that wealth is for others, that your current circumstances are permanent. And if you let these external suggestions dominate your thinking, they will. Your definite intention will dissolve into vague wishing. And vague wishing produces nothing. So the first law requires discipline, mental discipline, the discipline to hold your intention clearly even when circumstances suggest it's unrealistic, even when progress seems slow, even when doubt arises. This discipline is not struggle. It's focus. It's the calm, steady maintenance of a definite idea in mind. And when you maintain that definiteness, when you refuse to let external circumstances disturb your internal clarity, something remarkable happens. Your actions align naturally with your intention. Opportunities that match your intention become visible. Resources flow toward your clearly defined goal, not through magic, but through the lawful operation of focused mental power expressing itself through action. Now here's where most people fail. They hold a definite intention for wealth, but simultaneously hold contradictory thoughts. They intend prosperity while believing they don't deserve it. They visualize abundance while feeling guilty about wanting money. They affirm success while thinking about all the ways they might fail. This divided mind produces nothing, because the second law states that your thoughts must be disciplined to align with your intention. You cannot hold wealth in mind while simultaneously entertaining thoughts of poverty and expect wealth to manifest. The law doesn't work that way. Your mind is the creative instrument, but it creates whatever you consistently think about, not what you occasionally wish for, what you actually think about most of the time. And most people think about lack far more than abundance. They notice what they don't have. They worry about bills. They complain about prices. They resent others' wealth. And every one of these thoughts is creative. It's creating more of what the thought focuses on. More lack, more worry, more struggle. Because mind creates after its own kind. Thoughts of lack produce experiences of lack. Thoughts of abundance produce experiences of abundance. This is law, as certain as any physical law, and ignoring it doesn't make it stop operating. So you must discipline your thoughts. This doesn't mean denying reality. It means choosing where to focus. When you notice lack, acknowledge it without dwelling on it. Then redirect your attention to what you intend to create. When worry arises about money, observe it without feeding it. Then return your thoughts to your definite intention. This is not suppression. It's direction. It's taking control of the one thing you can control completely. Where you place your attention and what thoughts you allow to dominate your mind. This requires vigilance, especially in the beginning, because you have decades of habitual thinking patterns. Patterns that focus on limitation, on what's wrong, on why things won't work. These patterns run automatically, and they'll continue running until you consciously replace them with new patterns. Patterns of focused, disciplined thought aligned with your definite intention. But when you do this, when you catch yourself thinking thoughts that contradict your intention and deliberately redirect to thoughts that support it, you're working with the second law, and the compound effect of discipline thought over time is extraordinary. Not because you're trying to trick the universe, but because you're aligning your creative mental power with your conscious intention instead of letting it scatter in contradiction. But disciplined thought alone is not enough. There's a third law, the law of emotional alignment. Your emotions are signals. They're indicating what you truly believe beneath your conscious thoughts. You can affirm wealth all day, but if underneath you feel unworthy, the feeling wins. You can visualize success constantly, but if underneath you feel it's impossible for you, that feeling dominates, because emotion is more powerful than thought. Emotion is thought charged with feeling, and charged thought is what manifests, not neutral thought, not intellectual understanding, but thought infused with feeling. This is why so many people fail with positive thinking. They think the right thoughts. They say the right affirmations, but they don't feel them. They don't emotionally align with what they're affirming. So there's no power behind the thought, no creative force, just words without conviction. And words without conviction create nothing. But when thought and feeling align, when you think about your intention and feel it as already real, as already yours, as already inevitable, that combination is creative. That produces results. Because you're not just thinking about wealth, you're embodying the emotional state of someone who already has wealth. And the universe responds to that state, not to your words, to your being. So you must examine how you feel about wealth, about yourself, about your worthiness, about your capability. If there's contradiction between what you want and what you feel you deserve, that contradiction must be resolved. Not through more affirmations, but through honest self-examination, through understanding where the contradictory feelings come from, through consciously choosing new emotional patterns that align with your intention. This is internal work, invisible work, work that most people avoid because it's uncomfortable. But it's essential work, because as long as your emotions contradict your intentions, your emotions will win. They always do. They're more fundamental than conscious thought. So you must bring them into alignment. Must feel wealthy before you see wealth. Must embody prosperity internally before it manifests externally. Now, here's where many people get confused. They think feeling wealthy means pretending, acting rich, spending money they don't have. But that's not alignment. That's delusion. True emotional alignment with wealth means feeling the inner certainty, the inner security, the inner peace that comes with knowing your financial foundation is solid. You can feel this even when your bank account is small, because the feeling is not about current circumstances. It's about inner state, about how you relate to money, about whether you feel afraid and desperate or calm and certain. Wealth is attracted to the latter, repelled by the former, always, without exception. So if you currently feel anxious about money, you're repelling it. If you feel desperate for it, you're repelling it. If you feel you must struggle to get it, you're creating more struggle. These feelings, regardless of your conscious intentions, are signaling lack. And lack attracts more lack. But when you feel calm, when you feel certain, when you feel that wealth is natural and flowing to you, even before evidence appears, you're aligning with the law. You're creating the emotional state that wealth responds to. And when you maintain that state, wealth comes. Not through magic, through lawful response to your emotional frequency. But feeling aligned emotionally is still not enough if you're not creating value. This brings us to the fourth law, the law of value creation. Wealth does not come from effort. It comes from value. You can work harder than anyone and remain poor if the work creates little value. But you can work efficiently, even minimally, and generate enormous wealth if the work creates tremendous value. This is why the relationship between effort and reward is not linear. It's not about how many hours you work. It's about how much value those hours produce. Value is determined by others, not by you. It's what other people are willing to exchange their resources for. You might value your work highly, but if others don't, it produces no wealth. The market, the people you serve, they determine value through what they're willing to pay. So if you want wealth, you must create things that others value enough to pay for. This seems obvious, but most people focus on what they want to do rather than what others need or want. They build businesses around their preferences without considering whether those preferences align with genuine market demand. And then they wonder why wealth doesn't come. The law is simple. Wealth flows in proportion to value created, not value as you define it. Value as others define it through their willingness to exchange. So you must understand what people value, what problems they have that need solving, what desires they have that want fulfilling. And then you must create solutions, products, services, ideas that genuinely serve those needs and desires. When you do this, when you focus on creating real value for others rather than just getting money for yourself, wealth follows. Naturally, inevitably, because you're working with the law of exchange. Value given creates value received. Always, the more value you create for others, the more wealth flows to you. Not because you deserve it, but because that's how the law operates. But here's what most people resist. Creating real value requires skill. Effort. Time learning. It's easier to want money than to develop the ability to create value worth exchanging money for. So people look for shortcuts, get-rich-quick schemes, ways to get money without creating equivalent value. And these approaches violate the law. They might produce short-term gain, but they don't produce lasting wealth. Because wealth built on violating law is unstable. It can't be maintained. The universe, the law itself, corrects the imbalance, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, but always. You cannot cheat spiritual law any more than you can cheat gravity. So you must commit to value creation, to genuinely serving others through what you offer, to continuously improving your ability to create value, to focusing not on what you can get but on what you can give. And when you make this shift, when you measure your success by value created rather than money extracted, something profound happens. Money starts flowing more easily because you're working with the law rather than against it. You're focused on the cause, value creation, rather than obsessing over the effect, money received. And when you focus on cause, effect takes care of itself. Now, even when you're creating value, even when you're emotionally aligned, even when your thoughts are disciplined, there's another law that must be understood. The law of delayed reward. This is perhaps the most difficult law for modern people to accept, because we've been conditioned to expect immediate results. instant gratification, quick returns. But wealth, real wealth, is almost always delayed. There's a gap between cause and effect, between sowing and reaping, between value created and reward received. And this gap tests everyone. Most people cannot endure the gap. They create value for a while, see no immediate reward, and conclude it's not working. They give up. They change direction. They abandon their definite intention because results didn't come on their timeline. But the law doesn't operate on your timeline. It operates on its own timeline. And that timeline includes necessary periods of accumulation, of invisible growth, of preparation. Think of a farmer. He plants seeds. For weeks, nothing visible happens. The seeds are underground, germinating, growing roots. If the farmer digs them up to check progress, he kills them. He must trust the process, must continue caring for the field even when he sees nothing. And then at the right time, not his preferred time, but the right time, growth breaks through the surface. The harvest comes, but only if he didn't abandon the field during the invisible period. Your wealth works the same way. You plant seeds through definite intention, disciplined thought, emotional alignment, value creation. But the harvest is not immediate. There's an invisible period where nothing seems to be happening, where your efforts appear fruitless, where doubt suggests you're wasting time. This is the testing period. And most people fail the test. They give up during the invisible period. Right before breakthrough was coming, they switched strategies constantly, never staying with anything long enough for the law to complete its cycle. And they remain perpetually in the planting phase, never reaching harvest, because harvest requires patience, requires faith in the law even when evidence is absent, requires continuing to work the principles when results are delayed. This law requires understanding time differently, not as immediate cause and effect, but as accumulation leading to threshold. You accumulate disciplined thoughts, aligned emotions, value creation, and these accumulate invisibly until they reach a threshold. And when they do, manifestation happens, often rapidly once the threshold is reached. But reaching the threshold requires sustained effort through the delay period. There's no way around this, no shortcut. The law includes the delay, and the delay serves a purpose. It's developing you, building your capacity, testing your commitment, ensuring that when wealth comes, you're ready to handle it. Because wealth given to someone who hasn't developed the inner qualities necessary to maintain it is quickly lost. The law protects against this by including necessary delay, so you must develop patience, not passive waiting, active patience, continuing to apply the principles while trusting the process, continuing to create value while knowing the reward is coming, just not yet. This patience is faith, not religious faith, but practical faith in law. The same faith you have that dropped objects will fall. You don't doubt gravity because you can't see it. You trust its operation because you've observed its effects consistently. You must develop the same trust in these wealth laws. Trust built through small observations, through noticing that when you think disciplined thoughts, opportunities appear. When you align emotionally, doors open. When you create value, exchange happens. These small confirmations build faith, and faith sustains you through the delay period until the full harvest manifests. But there's another law operating simultaneously, the law of responsibility. This law states that you are responsible for your financial reality, completely responsible, not partially, not mostly, completely. This is not comfortable to hear because it means you can't blame circumstances, can't blame the economy, can't blame your background or education or connections or luck. You are the cause of your financial reality through the laws you've been working with or violating. And accepting this complete responsibility is both the hardest and most liberating realization you can have. Most people resist this law completely. They want to believe their poverty or struggle is someone else's fault, the system's fault, their parents' fault, bad luck, anything external. Because if it's external, they're victims. And victims don't have to change, don't have to take responsibility, don't have to examine their own thinking and feeling and actions. But the law doesn't care about your preferences. It operates regardless, and it places all creative power and therefore all responsibility within you. In your mind, in your consciousnesses, in your alignment with these principles. This is actually good news. Because if you're responsible, you're also powerful. If your thinking creates your reality, you can change your reality by changing your thinking. If your emotional state attracts your circumstances, you can attract different circumstances by shifting your state. If your actions determine outcomes, you can determine different outcomes through different actions. You're not helpless, not at the mercy of external forces. You're the operator of law, and law responds to how you operate. So complete responsibility means complete power. The power to create whatever financial reality you choose by aligning yourself with the laws that govern such creation. But responsibility requires honesty, brutal honesty. You must look at your current financial situation and acknowledge that it's the result of how you've been thinking, feeling, and acting. Not how you wish you'd been operating. How you actually have been. If you're in lack, it's because you've been thinking thoughts of lack more than thoughts of abundance. Feeling emotions of fear more than emotions of certainty, creating value inconsistently more than creating value consistently. This isn't judgment, it's observation. And until you observe accurately, you can't correct effectively. So examine yourself. Where have you violated these laws? Where has your thinking been undisciplined, scattered, focused on lack? Where have your emotions contradicted your intentions? Where have you sought reward without creating equivalent value? Where have you given up during the delay period? Where have you blamed circumstances instead of taking responsibility? These violations are why wealth has been absent or insufficient. Not because you're unlucky, not because life is unfair, but because law operates precisely. And when you violate law, you experience the consequences of violation, which are always limitation, struggle, and lack in relation to what you violated. But here's the power. The moment you accept responsibility, you gain the power to change things. Because if you created your current reality through unconscious violation of law, you can create a different reality through conscious alignment with law. The same laws that created poverty, when violated, will create wealth when honored. The laws haven't changed. Your understanding and application of them changes. And that changes everything. Now there's one final law, the most subtle, the most misunderstood, and perhaps the most powerful. The law of faith expressed through action. Faith is not belief without evidence. Real faith is the inner certainty that what you intend is already established in the invisible realm and will manifest in the visible realm through your aligned action. It's not hoping things will work out. It's knowing they will because you understand the laws and you're applying them correctly. This knowing, this certainty, this faith, it changes how you act. You don't act from desperation. You act from confidence. You don't pursue frantically. You proceed calmly. You don't grab at opportunities fearfully. You select opportunities wisely. But here's the key. Faith must express through action, not through passivity. Some people mistake faith for waiting. They believe if they have faith, everything will come to them without effort. But that's not faith. That's laziness disguised as spirituality. True faith expresses through inspired action, through action that aligns with your definite intention, through action that creates value, through action that's consistent despite delayed reward. Faith and action are not separate. They're one movement. Faith is the inner state. Action is the outer expression, and both are necessary. Think of it this way. You have faith that a chair will hold you. This faith is proven when you sit in it. If you just stare at the chair while claiming faith, but never sit, your faith is meaningless. It's the sitting, the action. That proves and expresses the faith. Same with wealth. You can have faith in these laws. But that faith must express through definite intention, disciplined thought, emotional alignment, value creation, patient persistence, and complete responsibility. When you act from all of these, when your actions embody the faith, wealth comes. Not because you worked hard, but because your actions were aligned with law. We're expressing faith in law. And law always responds to faith expressed through aligned action. But most people act from fear, not faith. They take action because they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. They work desperately because they're scared of poverty. They grasp at opportunities because they fear missing out. And this energy of fear, this emotional foundation beneath the action, it repels wealth. Because fear is lack consciousness. And lack consciousness creates more lack. You must learn to act from faith instead, from the certainty that wealth is coming, because you're aligned with the laws that create it. From the calm assurance that your needs will be met because you're creating value and trusting the process. This shift from fear-based action to faith-based action, it changes everything. The actions might look similar externally, but internally the energy is completely different. And internal energy is what the universe responds to. So examine your actions. Are you acting from faith or fear? From certainty or desperation? From aligned intention or scattered anxiety? Your results will tell you, because results always match the internal state that drove the action. If results are poor, it's not that you're not taking action. It's that the action is coming from the wrong internal state. But when you align your internal state, when you develop genuine faith in these laws and express that faith through consistent aligned action, results shift. They must. Because you're working with law, not against it. Now, here's what most people never realize. They spend their entire lives violating these laws daily, hundreds of times per day. Every time they think a thought of lack, every time they feel unworthy, every time they resent someone else's wealth, every time they complain about prices or circumstances, every time they take action from desperation instead of faith, every time they give up when results are delayed, every single instance is a violation, and violations accumulate. They create a pattern, a frequency, a state of being that repels wealth consistently. But here's the profound truth. You can reverse this starting now, this moment. You don't need to fix your entire past. You just need to start aligning now. One thought at a time, one feeling at a time, one action at a time. Each time you catch yourself thinking lack and redirect to abundance. Each time you notice fear and choose faith instead. Each time you act from aligned intention rather than desperate reaction. You're building new patterns, new frequencies, new states of being. And these new patterns, maintained consistently, will produce new results, different outcomes, eventually inevitable wealth. This is not quick. Remember the law of delayed reward, but it is certain as any natural law. When you align with these principles, when you live by these laws consistently, wealth becomes not a matter of if but when. Not through magic. Through lawful operation of principles that have created every fortune ever built. You're not trying to trick the universe into giving you money. You're aligning yourself with how the universe already operates in relation to wealth. And that alignment produces results that seem magical to those who don't understand the laws. But to you, they'll seem natural, inevitable, the obvious result of living in harmony with spiritual principles. So how do you begin? How do you start aligning with these laws practically today in your actual life? Not through dramatic overhaul, through small, consistent corrections, through bringing awareness to how you're currently operating and adjusting toward alignment. Start with your thoughts. Throughout today, notice what you think about money, about wealth, about your financial situation. Are the thoughts aligned with definite intention, or are they scattered wishes? Are they disciplined toward abundance or drifting toward lack? Don't judge what you notice. Just observe. And when you notice thoughts that violate the laws, thoughts of lack or fear or unworthiness, gently redirect. Choose a different thought, a thought that aligns with your definite intention. Do this every time you notice. And you'll notice hundreds of times. That's fine. Each redirection is training, is building the habit of disciplined thought. Then observe your emotions. How do you feel when you think about money? When you see others' wealth? When you consider your own goals? Does fear arise? Does unworthiness? Does resentment? Again, don't judge. Just notice. And when you notice emotions that contradict the wealth you intend, don't try to suppress them. Just acknowledge them. Then consciously choose to feel differently. Choose calm certainty. Choose worthiness. Choose appreciation for others' wealth as evidence that wealth is possible. This emotional training is essential. It's reprogramming your fundamental frequency from lack to abundance. Next, examine the value you're creating. Are you focused on what you can get or what you can give? Are you developing skills that create genuine value for others? Are you serving real needs or just pursuing activities you enjoy without regard for whether others value them? If you're not creating value that others willingly exchange for, start. Identify a genuine need or desire in your market. Develop the ability to fulfill that need and offer it with the intention of serving rather than extracting. This shift from getting to giving, it aligns you with the law of value creation. And alignment produces results. Then practice patience. When you apply these principles and don't see immediate results, resist the urge to give up. Understand that you're in the delay period. That accumulation is happening invisibly, that the seeds are germinating underground. Your job is not to see results yet. Your job is to maintain the principles, to keep your thoughts disciplined, to keep your emotions aligned, to keep creating value, to keep acting from faith. Do this consistently through the delay period and harvest becomes inevitable. But you must endure the delay, must trust the law even when evidence is absent. And through all of this, take complete responsibility. Stop blaming. Stop making excuses. Stop explaining why your circumstances are special or different. They're not. The laws operate the same for everyone. If you're experiencing lack, it's because you've been violating laws. Accept this. Not as condemnation, but as empowerment. Because if you created lack through violation, you can create wealth through alignment. You have all the power. It's in your consciousness, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in your actions. Use that power deliberately, consciously, consistently, and watch what happens. Finally, let your actions express faith, not desperate grasping, not fearful hustling, but calm, confident, consistent action aligned with your definite intention. Action that creates value, action that serves. Action that continues even when results are delayed. This is faith in motion. And faith in motion, when combined with all the other principles, is unstoppable. It must produce results because it's aligned perfectly with how wealth is created according to spiritual law. You are surrounded by these laws right now. They're operating in you, through you, around you, every moment. Your current financial reality is the perfect result of how you've been working with or against these laws. Not mostly. Perfectly. This is not mysticism. This is precision. The universe is mathematical, lawful, exact. And wealth, like everything else, follows exact principles. When you learn these principles, when you align yourself with them, when you live by them consistently, wealth stops being a dream and becomes a decision, a choice, an inevitable outcome of how you're operating. This is your path forward, not through tricks or schemes, not through luck or chance, but through understanding and alignment with laws that govern wealth. Laws that have always operated, that will always operate. Laws that are operating in you now. The only question is whether you'll continue violating them unconsciously or start honoring them consciously. Whether you'll keep creating lack through misalignment or start creating wealth through alignment. The laws don't change. Your relationship to them changes. And that relationship determines everything. So decide now. Will you accept these laws as real? Will you examine how you've been violating them? Will you commit to aligning with them regardless of how long it takes? Will you maintain definite intention, disciplined thought, emotional alignment, value creation, patient persistence, complete responsibility, and faith expressed through action? These are not casual questions. Your answers determine your financial future. Not someday. Starting now, because the laws are operating now, creating results now. And those results, whether of lack or abundance, are forming in your consciousness before manifesting in your circumstances. Wealth is not chased, it is attracted. Through alignment with spiritual laws that govern its creation. You cannot force wealth to come through effort alone, but you can align yourself so perfectly with these laws that wealth flows to you naturally, inevitably, as the lawful result of your inner state expressing through aligned action. This is the path, this is the way, not the only way, but the certain way, the way that has created every lasting fortune, the way that will create yours if you commit to it fully, if you trust the laws, if you work with them rather than against them, if you become someone who embodies these principles so completely that wealth has no choice but to flow to you, because that's how law operates, and law never fails.